Yeah, so today we are going to see what is Monorepo and how to integrate with Nx. Okay. Yeah. So before starting, can I know like how many of you are using Monorepo in their office project? Okay. And how many of you using Nx? Okay, quite a few, right, good. And how many of you having experience in building libraries in Angular, like a reusable library that can be deployable? Cool, nice, quite a few. Okay, so in this session, we will be looking at different things. First thing, Monorepo, and then we will try to integrate the Monorepo in application using something called as Nx, and we will look at the few parts of Nx which may fall in love with that. Okay, so before beginning, like going towards Monorepo, let's talk about something like multi-repo. What I mean by that? So when I say multi-repo, it's like having different repository for your each application, right? Like most of the people are doing this way only in their office projects, but there could be few things that, so there are few things that are good with multi-repo, but some are not. So throughout this talk, I am going to use three projects. So first project is Book My Cinema. Okay, so it's similar to a Book My Show application. The second application that I will be using is Ticket Admin. So this application is all about, there is an administrator that takes care of, by looking at, where the show time should be placed, on which date, and what are the revenue of a film in different regions like US or India. And to share a code between this multi-repo, like, the two repository, I cannot, I have to place it some shareable location, right? So what that could be? So I used npm to share the shareable code. Basically, I have created a third repository which name is ticket booking library. Okay. So I will show you this application, how it looks like, but we are not still there yet. So we'll look at that, how they looks like in later part of the talk. So multi-repo, okay. So as I said, we will look at pros and cons of each. So what are the pros of multi-repo, So first thing is, one of the greatest thing, the ownership is clear. So when repositories are different, you can control the ownership. You can give read and write access to specific people, and few can have only, like some people can have, a master level access or admin level access as well. The next thing is, since the repository are different, you can apply different CI rules, continue integration. Apart from that, the rollbacks become very easy. Okay, like if in case you want to do a rollback, you can visit the previous tag of release version and you can move your code back to the older one. That is also easier. With multi-repo, when it's a repo is smaller, you will have very small build time, and that is also a very good part. So that was a good part about multi-repo. Let's see what are the cons of multi-repo. So the con could be like CI/CD may be challenging if there are multiple dependencies involved, because what happens is, whenever it comes to deployment, we download all the dependency, we build it together, and we push it. Like we do all those stuff. So in case of there are multiple dependency, it becomes challenging. Sometimes dependencies are hard to maintain. So this is debatable, I could say. If you have a great way to do that, it's a maintainable proper way, but most of the time, sometimes it goes into mess. Okay. Also, when you have a multi-repo and you have dependency between two projects, it becomes little tougher to manage end-to-end test case. You have to run separate project, side by side and do it, and that's not what we need. Like we want to do things fast, ship fast, and go ahead, like without breaking things. So one more disadvantage or cons I could say is, the code sharing could require extra effort and maintenance. Why I'm saying that? You know, like in previous slide, you have seen that the third part of the code, I want to share it, so I want to push it to npm, you know, and you know, whenever you want to make any small change in your code, reusable code, you have to commit your code into that library, then you have to push it to npm, and the other projects will consume it. You know, so sometimes it feels like, you know, that is a little bit maintenance wise time consuming. Okay, so let's come back to the monorepo. So when I say monorepo, mono stands for single. So overall you will be having single repository, and inside a single repository you will have all the projects. Okay, so let's see what are the pros of that. The code sharing and maintenance are easy. You know why? Because everything is under same folder. You just have to import them. Okay, no need to go in npm and install the package. Then you have a single source of truth. You know, if in case you want to look for the library code anyways, you can just jump into that code and look at it, you know, what was happening there. Okay, and since you can look it, you can change it anytime, you know, and that becomes easier. You know, you don't have to go that npm way. Since everything is at same place, end-to-end test cases become easier. The cross project end-to-end test cases, running them becomes very super easy, and system versioning can be simpler. You know, again, it depends how you do it. You have to have some strategy to maintain this. Also, the refactoring can be easy. So why I'm saying that refactoring can be easy? So take an example of, you are downloading a bootstrap package. What you see when you download it in package.json, you have to go to node modules, check the bootstrap.js, and that is already a minified code, or you know, uglified code, and you have to just, you know, go over that. But in case you have all the code together, you can see its actual version, you know. So the debugging or checking the dependency of your function or whatever you want to call becomes easy. So better visibility, again coming to the same point. Now see what are the cons around this. So the cons is, again, I said the access control was easier there, but over here you don't have much access control feature. And of course, since you are compiling everything at a time, single time, the build times become, you know, greater. So you know, we can't really say that multi-repo is bad or monorepo is good. There is advantage of one. If you go one side, you will see some advantage, but there will be other advantages, disadvantages as well. So yeah. So who are using this monorepo in market right now? So these are the big giant company like Microsoft, Google, Uber, Meta, and there are so many guys, folks, those are using this monorepo. So monorepo is not nothing, you know, any new architecture. It is just a standard, you know, the way of keeping your code. Okay. So I know this is bit theory part. We are going to have a coding part as well, that is in latter part, but yeah, I want to make sure that the monorepo part is clear for you. That's why I am taking this. So let's go to the part. So how do they do this monorepo part, right? So monorepo can be done, but it requires a tools. Like, you know, if you want to build Angular, what do you have to do? You need an Angular framework, and apart from that, you also need a CLI that can help you to build it, right? So you require some tool or a standards that can be, you know, automated by some tool, right? So what are the monorepo tools that exist right now? One is Lerna. Then there is a Bazel, Gradle, Turborepo. There is Nx as well, Rush, Lage, and etc. There are so many monorepo tools that those are exist in the market right now. But out of this, the Lerna was very famous, and recently in February 2022 it got deprecated. Okay, so you know, people started jumping from Lerna to Nx, and in last 6 months, if you look at the graph of Nx weekly download, it went, you know, around 1.8 million. So it is very good, you know, in terms of, and it crossed actually the Lerna weekly downloads because it is deprecated. So people stopped using it, right? So that was it. So someone will ask me like, why should we use Nx? Angular CLI is there, right? It is also a tool. So can we do something similar with Angular CLI? So yes, let's try to do some monorepo thing with Angular CLI. So how to do that? Okay, so if you are creating any application from scratch, just run this command ng new. Now you will say workspace. Why workspace? Because now it will contain so many repository, right? So that's why I'm saying workspace. And we will say create application and false. False is a flag where I'm saying don't create a default application, okay? And in later part, it will create an empty folder, okay? And now you will navigate to that and you will say that on second line you can check, I have to say that ng generate. You know, you can also generate a component, services. Similarly, you can pass a schematic called as application, okay, and you can pass the application name. For example, here I pass my first app, and similar way I can also create a libs. You know, I will come to the libs part later, but something called as, you know, so libs is nothing but something reusable, okay. And once you do that, you will find something like this. You will have a my workspace as a main folder, and under that you will find a folder called as projects, and under the projects you will find two things. One is application, my first app, and the second one is my lib, okay. But you know, the thing is you can play with Angular CLI, but what I have found is personally it is very tough to scale, tough to add so many application in using Angular CLI. So what is tough part? There is no wiring between, you know, how the monorepo should work in Angular CLI. You have to write so many commands in your package.json that will link the two libraries and the application. So I'm not going to go into depth of it because we are not going to use Angular CLI anyways. So let's move on to the next part and the interesting part, which is Nx. So what is Nx? So Nx is a basically tool, okay, that helps to build an application in scalable way, okay. So what I mean by that is when you create an application, they don't have only a monorepo support. It has more than that, okay. And you know, I said like when we say tool, it should do so many things out of the box, right? So when you have a Nx, by just running one or two commands, you can add Cypress, you can add Jest, and you can add, you know, the frameworks that are there exist in the market just by running few commands, and you are ready for setup, and you are ready for writing those. So behind the scene, Nx looks like this, you know. It built on top of Angular schematics, and on top of that, they are using Angular CLI. So under the hood, they are using Angular schematics, CDK, and Angular CLI. And you can see that on top of it, we have something called as Narwhal workspace, which is the code they have written to maintain a monorepo and other tool management stuff. And then they have a core plugins. Like if you are using Svelte, they have something called as @narwhal/svelte. If you are using Angular, then they have something called as @narwhal/angular. So the plugins like that. So you will see that in action in few minutes. So let's start the coding with, you know, using Nx and see how it works. So let me switch to so let me switch. I have okay. So so to create a workspace in Nx, what you have to do is you have to run a few sets of command. Okay, those commands are very similar to what you have in Angular CLI. Okay, so to create a workspace, you have to run a command something called as create Nx workspace. Okay, the npx is one. Why I wrote that? Because I don't want to install the package on my local machine. And when I say preset empty means, you know, the repository will be empty. Okay, so let's do that side by side. I will open one folder, new one, and so I will create a folder here. Sorry. Let me create a folder on my desktop quickly, something called as test. Let's open that in Visual Studio, file, new window, open desktop. So this one is that. So I'm going to open my command line and say nx. What are the commands? Nx, create nx workspace, preset empty. Create workspace. Create nx workspace, preset empty, sorry. And preset. So what this will do is, this will, let me npx create, okay, @latest. Something is wrong here, not sure. Okay, let me do this way, like, because I have so much stuff to display. So let's skip this part. I will directly put, I will walk through you the command and just I will switch to the code that I have. Okay. So one thing is, like, when you create this project with npx, you will see that it will create an empty project, and then you can create your applications using a command called as nx generate application. It's similar like how you do in Angular CLI. Nx, instead of ng you will be using nx, then generate, then application. The first application that I have was ticket admin. Okay, so that's why the third number line is ticket admin. Similarly, the second application was book my ticket, and the third was my library. So I ran these three commands and I can see something like this here. So first thing is book my cinema, the second one is ticket admin, and the third one is created under libs, which is ticket booking library lib. Okay, so if you look at this closely, what nx did is nx created projects or application under apps folder. Okay, and it created the libs under libs folder. Okay, so when you do this, what will happen is, so what I did is, to save some time, I just ran this. Is this font okay, or should I bump up? This is okay? Okay, thank you. So what I did right now is, I added two applications. Those were there. The first one is book my cinema, and the second one is ticket admin. And also I added one lib, so that should be under libs folder, right? So this one it is. So let me delete this just to avoid confusion. Those are blank folder, sorry. Delete this one too. Yeah. So just assume that it only have this much. Okay. Let's run this project and I will walk through what is there. npm nx serve. So you say ng serve, right? Over here you are going to say nx serve, and then book my cinema app. Similar way I will run the other application in other window, nx serve. The other one is ticket admin. So this has run already. So this is very simple application. Like, it has two things. One is home and the other one is movies. So it shows a movies in this way, a top movies here, and when you click on any movie, it goes into the details of it, and you can see that the selected movie with the show times. Okay, And if you run the other application in the other window, you can see that it also have same thing, but it's a admin view. So they can see the statistics, what is the revenue. They can see the money collection by movie. Okay. And the next thing is they also can see how they can manage the show times. Okay. So what exactly I did here is, if you look at the code of this, I copied everything from the multi-repo of Book My Cinema to here inside this application. I copied everything from ticket admin application, and that code goes completely here, you know. And the architecture of code looks like this. I have a slide for that. So all in all, in Book My Cinema application, we have 4 components only. One is home component, movies component, movie list, and the slider one. You know that on home page there were slider. In second one, the ticket booking application, I had charts, dashboard. You know, 3 pages were there, right? Charts, dashboard, and collection, and the manage showtime page. And the shareable library has so many things, because there is so many code that has been shared amongst the application. Yeah, so the thing is, let's move on to the next part. Next part, which is, you know, mental model, how to think in NX way. So what NX says is, when you develop any application inside NX, you will be only having 10 to 20% of your code inside your apps folder. Okay, and remaining 80 to 90% will be libs, you know, splitted in the application. So what you will be doing at the end, you will be collating all the libs and using that in app folder. Okay, so let's move a little bit more into that. So when it comes to a mental model of NX, there are 5 to 6 things that you have to make sure that you understand it. So most of the part in NX, you know, it goes into folder structure. Okay, how to structurize it. So these are the few things that you have to make sure. So first thing is feature. So what is feature? So feature means whenever any page loaded via route, that feature, that page should or component should go inside a feature folder. Whenever there is a, you know, there is a component that is apart from loaded via route, you know, inside small piece of code, that will go inside a UI. The routing part, routing configuration will go inside a shell folder, and the data access will have API call, API services. And store will be, you know, whoever have the state management, they can put the store code in there. And then the models part and the utils part, you know, they are self-explanatory. So to explain a mental model in better way, suppose you have a routing configuration that says that path is equal to manage show times, and it is loading a component called as manage show times component, and the component HTML is here. So how do you apply the NX model, NX mental model here? So whatever you see here, the component loaded, that can be considered as a feature model. Okay, so we can call it as a feature. So over here, 3 things are there, 3 components are there. One is manage show times component. The second one is movie preview card component. You know, just look at this HTML and see how many Angular components are there. So one is BMC movie card component, and then BMC show times component. So how to identify them? So loaded via route meaning feature component. And apart from the route, if there is any component exist on the page, those will go inside a UI folder. So these 2 will go inside a UI folder. And if you know, so what will happen is, basically, if you try to do a migration of this application, so due to time constraint, I may not be able to walk through all the code, but you know, I will directly show you the migration part. You know, what will be the final version will look like. Sorry about that. cd git checkout final. So I have to restart my TS server once. Okay. Okay, not there, so that's okay. Okay, so let me run this application and show the code here. So earlier, have you seen that what was there? In Book My Cinema application, you were seeing all the code that was belonging to your Book My Cinema application code, right? Now over here inside apps, you can just see app component and app module.ts. That's it, nothing else. Let's look at the other application, ticket admin. After the migration, what happened is it just have this component. So how this wiring is happening and how things are distributed. So if you look at the other folder, which is libs, and it has so many things like, I created charts, those are separate one. I created collection. Let's come to the interesting part directly. Let me show you movies part. I told you one thing like, there should be a segregation between folder, the feature, UI, store and whatnot. So over here I did two segregation. One is feature folder. The feature folder meaning if I go to the route of this particular application, which is movie, I will see that details component, home component and movies component, those are loaded via routes. That's why they are here, over here. And same way the other one, like home component and the movies component. So these are the components that are directly moved inside movies feature folder as a lib. And I can use those lib and connect those lib using something called as shell. So I also said shell, right, for routing purpose. So everything is connected via this shell. So if you look at this shell is nothing but you have moved your app routing module.ts from your application to a lib, separate lib, that is called as shell. So let me show you the one more thing, which is a code of app module.ts. You just have this thing inside your app module, only this much configuration, and inside your app component.html you just have this much configuration, and whole complete application is running fine as what it was before. So yeah, so basically after all the migration happens from the normal Angular app to Nx Monorepo, it looks like this. And that's it, like out of the box Monorepo Nx is just not a Monorepo tool, so it just provides a support for Cypress and Storybook. Also it supports something called as Nx computational cache. So those who were using Nx at their work, they must have seen the build time must have been improved a lot when they are using Nx, because it uses something called as computational cache behind the scene. Also Nx simplifies the project architecture by looking at a dependency graph. So you just have to run an Nx graph command, and that will tell you how the dependencies are interrelated. Also you can just run the affected test, and they have something called as Nx console tool that will help you to run CLI things using UI. So that's what Nx solves the purpose. So basically your most of the code will be splitted inside libs, which is reusable. Anybody can use it, just they have to wire it using shell and app routing module. Like that is nothing but a shell. And that is how the Nx was. So I will share the code of this, and sorry about that, I was not able to share a demo of this because of time constraint. So yeah, feel free to meet me after this talk. I will be here around. Yeah, so thank you for it. And
thank you so much, Pankaj.